Gentlemen, this was supposed to be a very in-depth meeting. This was supposed to have a lot of depth, and it was supposed to have a much larger attendance. Brian Thrower, the town manager and crew, and I asked him some time ago if he would like to join us. I'd also communicated with Joe D'Amico, who is the director of the Department of General Services from the state, who had been involved in the original discussions with the town to provide water to the facilities up there on the upper end of the county and the town of Crew. And the state has gone dark on us. They don't return calls. They don't tell us what they're doing. He has been invited to this meeting, and I guess they blew it off and weren't interested in attending. So, needless to say, we have received notice from the state that due to an arbitrary deadline, they've decided to go to Prince Edward. None of that is true. The fact is, when his staff member, Chris Porras, neglected to return a phone call to me on several occasions, I called his boss.
Who we talking about right now?
A gentleman named Chris Porras worked for Joe D'Amico at the Department of General Services,
Okay.
and he didn't return calls. We had provided him with documentation. Hey, we're gonna have this meeting on the 13th. Couldn't get him to return a call. Couldn't get him to return a call. Couldn't get him to return a call. So I called the boss and I said, are y'all still in or are you out? What are we doing? Do we need to spend more money? Do we need to continue this? Because I was gonna meet with the Department of Health about borrowing some money, and Tamara Anderson, I think, and infrastructure money and all those kinds of things. And he said, well, I think we're working with Prince Edward County right now, but we'll let you know by the end of the week. That's where the December 3rd deadline, it ain't mine. It was there. And I said, well, that's fine, let me know, because I got council meetings coming, and I need to kind of be able to tell everybody on the 14th today. So, needless to say, we haven't heard anything else back from him. Follow-up call to Joe D'Amico went unresponded to. I just think it's a funny way to do business. I can't say it's a bad way to do business, but maybe that's how Chris Porras and Joe D'Amico do business all the time. And I don't know if it suits the town too terribly well, but or suit me too terribly well. The last information I provided to them, and this is for the record, so we provided them with a cost estimate that was a little higher than I was thinking. But MacBug came back and said, your system must have a certain amount of upgrades, but it should have up to $13 million, almost $14 million of water improvement upgrades. Over 6 of that is for a new raw water line. And I told Chris Porras that that was a negotiable, because I think that there's a shared responsibility for that. It's just old, and we're concerned about putting additional pressures on the pipe. We're concerned that it would bust, but it's very expensive. So almost half of that 13 million was a negotiable item, but I don't think the state was hearing it, because I think the state, tell you the truth, had already determined they were going to Prince Edward some time ago, long before any of this came out. I think they had already done that.
Has Prince Edward approved it, or what? Have they approved it?
Nothing's been approved that I know of, because
Prince Edward doesn't have a water.
They don't
Yeah, I
have
was gonna say, where are they
system.
getting water?
Yeah, where they gonna get water from?
Sandy River.
I know.
Sandy
See the
River.
river. Well, oh, the same ones who came to the meeting and said we don't have enough water.
Sandy River Reservoir.
Right.
I don't get it. I don't understand it. But it's okay. As Brian wisely told me one time, that these are our colleagues, and so that's how.
But I
it's
mean,
going down.
do you think Prince Edward is actually gonna take this project?
I think they intend to. I think that I don't know how the state can make a decision
Because
without
they
knowing
think
the
they're
full
gonna get a lot
cost of
money
things.
from the
But
state is what it is.
Huh?
They think they're gonna get a bunch of money from the state.
so I don't know. I just don't know how it happened. But as far as the town's concerned, we're okay. We don't have to spend $14 million. We got reserves. We need to look out for the town. But all along, and I'm not buttering you up, but we do have a responsibility to make sure crew doesn't get slammed. They're the ones that are going to have the problem. Have they told you anything more direct, or am I missing anything?
So, y'all know, well, Phil knows about what I know. This caught us off guard too. We thought we were proceeding down the path. You know, I've been with the town for about 2 years now. So a lot of these discussions have been, from what I hear, have been going on for years. So anyway, they came to us, and I've been trying to catch up on this project myself, but, you know, the state was looking at, I think they did an initial study, then they did another study, and then around last year or so, before they met with y'all, right around the same time, They said they were looking at options, and at that time, they had determined with all the options on the table, Sandy River, Blackstone, upgrading our system, Blackstone was the preferred option. So since that time, we've been progressing down that path. They have put together, real general conceptual outline of the MOU. Y'all been developing these rates, project cost, so then Phil.
I will tell you real quick on the rate structure. We proposed to them within the past 30 days as a result of this $13 and change $1 million capital project, per 1,000 gallon rate of about $12. Okay? We were at our meetings. I told them all I can tell you what the out of town rate, which is about $12.50. Okay, I said it doesn't have to be there, but I did make the point. It's not going to be less than what somebody in Blackstone pays for water, which is about $8.50. Okay, you get an in-town rate and then another 50% from the $8 to $12. Okay,
So you can't.
so
be
this
less
came
than
into
the
about
tickets paid.
the out-of-town rate, and they just balked at it. They just looked at it.
But I got a question. How much say so does crew have in this?
How many
So, so this is a complicated matter, and I don't know how much stuff you're including in this, but,
It's on camera.
oh,
You mean take?
so that's a good question. The state has clearly said they're driving the train on this project. I think there was $9.5 million allocated in the state budget to look at options and upgrading systems and whatnot. They are on our system, the state facilities, as you're aware, are outside of the town limits. That's an issue. It's a state-funded project. There's a state code section that talks about, having to get approval to come into another locality to offer utility services. Again, they're outside of the town limits, and even if they were in the town limits.
Which county are they in?
They're in Nottaway
They
County.
are or not? Okay, that's what I
But since it's a state project, nobody's really sure about how that state code section works. So how much control the town has, that's a good question, probably very little. But, anyway,
Did
according
the
to.
board of supervisors get involved in this at all?
If
I don't
y'all
think
remember,
any more than that meeting
No,
we
no
had
more
at
than
Pickett.
yeah, Pickett,
That was
they
more
passed that
meeting
resolution.
about the Sandy River thing.
I don't know if the state's like, Philip said, the state's looking at, Sandy River and Prince Edward County. What they're planning, I did talk with Chris on the phone, they're planning a kickoff meeting in the future with localities. I don't know if y'all included, probably not, but, us and Nottaway County, Prince Edward, we're talking about what this future concept looks like, so.
Well, I will tell you on the county, I shouldn't say the county hadn't had any involvement. If I read the paper last week, there was some insinuation that Steve Bowen had been involved in some of these negotiations with Burkeville. I don't know if that's on his private or his work side or as a board of supervisors. I don't know, but the mayor did, I think, ask for some comment, and I don't think anything was received. So I don't know if he was acting as the county's agent. I can tell you, when we met, the town met originally with the folks from the Department of Behavioral Health, okay, which wasn't corrections, it wasn't DGS, the folks that runs BCBR. And when we had our first conversation, it was Ronnie Rourke, myself, Jennifer, two folks from the state, and I think they had an engineer with them, and Steve Bowen was with us. So I don't know if he's acting as a board member, I don't know if he's acting as a Piedmont employee, so I shouldn't say the county's had no contact. They may have authorized Steve to speak on the county's behalf, I don't know. I really don't know. But, that just, what I read in the paper, so whether that's the case or not. They said something about going into some closed sessions or something with the town of Burkeville. So, the county may be involved in things we don't know about. Alright? That's where we're at. We're gonna be okay, we're okay. If Cruz still wants to talk about getting water up there, maybe that's still a discussion point at some point.
Yeah, obviously our issue, they're give or take 2/3 of our revenue
Yeah.
on the water side.
Devastating for you guys.
That's, whatever the rates would have to be to increase on everybody else, that would be pretty dramatic, so. That's our issue.
And what's y'all's current plan with Crystal Lake?
Well, the town did a PER, years ago. And, I think they were up to about $25 million in potential upgrades that need to be done to the whole system. I think it was around 25 million.
Did that include the dredging, or is
Dredging,
that what did
dredging,
include that?
intake structure, plant upgrades. We've got an old water line that runs parallel to the railroad, that's $6 or $7 million. That was built in 1911. So part of what the state was proposing, with us, was upgrading that line. So nobody knows where things stand with all this anymore.
I would just like to see that, I hope the town could just leave its options open. And if you guys come back or come up with a different option, like just bring it back to the town council and see what's happening. But at this point, the state is dark. They're not telling me anything, nothing. They don't show up for meetings, they don't return calls, nothing. So,
Well, how much money they gonna spend over there at Prince Edward?
pardon?
How much money they talking about spending?
I don't know the exact figures, but it's
Is it higher than
millions
these?
of dollars, I suspect, between pipeline and treatment plant.
How much?
It'd be in the tens of millions of dollars, I'm sure.
Yeah, but like you said, there was only 9-point-some million in the budget for the state to pony
But
up.
that was just to run a pipe from town of Blackstone through Crew to the prison.
I don't have, the language says something like, the state looking at all options involving crew. It was real vague, so it's
Well-
basically up to the state to determine what's in the best interest.
Have y'all notified Tommy or Frank or anybody?
Me personally, no, I can't speak for it.
Maybe this is above our pay grade, I think personally, but I
Maybe.
think someone needs to get
Right.
involved with the state, because if the state's coming in and dictating what's gonna happen in somebody else's county, I got an issue with that.
You
But
talk
that's
about
not
the
my
revenue.
decision to make.
It's in the millions of dollars.
Yeah, I mean, cause it's not
Between
Prince
now
Edward
and
County. If it
future
was all
growth.
Prince Edward County, I'd say, go.
Yeah,
go
but
knock
it's
yourself out.
Nottaway
But it's
County
not.
that you're talking about. So there's Nottaway County should have a hell of a lot of influence in this.
And they may be
I'm
involved.
telling you.
I don't know. I don't know if they've ever had that
So,
conversation.
so again, in the state code, there's that state code section that talks about, see, they got the board of supervisors. If you remember, there was a previous version of this resolution that just gave them blanket authority to discuss, construct, operate
The state.
the state. Remember that,
Yeah.
and then they changed it and it talks about discussions only or something. So if it was a locality, there is a state code prohibition that says you gotta get the locality's approval, and if you don't, it goes to a special court or something.
Like, we gotta get Nottaway's permission to run that pipeline up Cox Road. We can't do it without the county. I think the county will give us the blessing to run the pipe, but not hook anybody up.
So Prince
We need
Edward
both.
couldn't run it
Yeah.
without Nottaway's approval, like, once it comes down to construction then?
That's beyond my pay grade, that's a legal question.
It's a legal question, but because it's the state, can the state then pay for that portion from the facilities to the county line
Yeah.
Okay.
and then circumvent the state code section?
But why don't we contact Tommy Wright to get the whole?
I think it should be a combined thing between the county and the towns and find out what's going on and all that sort of thing, because we're really not being told what's up.
Right.
Maybe that's something for on the 20th that we all, as a board, authorize at least inquiry. Now, the mayor and I talked a little bit about this, and we do think I think the mayor agrees, we should respect the way the crew wants to do it. They're really the impacted. I
Right.
mean, this is a lost opportunity for us. And I've told folks, 20 years from now, people are gonna look back and say, why did y'all let this happen? But in the short term, these are the guys that are not gonna make, payroll. So, I think we should do it as a combined, find out what crew wants to do and how they wanna approach it, and then maybe assist or provide assistance or attend or give them the opinion. But I really think whatever the town of Crew wants to do, they may get a better deal with Prince Edward and decide that town council wants to go to Prince Edward. And, I mean, do we wanna fight that? I don't know.
But wait a minute now. Okay, so we're fighting two governing bodies, right? We're fighting the town of Crew.
No,
Huh?
we're not fighting with Crew.
I'm saying though, but it's two different bodies.
You get the state, and I think DGS obviously has a new governor coming. They have new things happening. They have probably a new division chief or a new department head or whatever, or a secretariat that is to be reached out to. I know the National Guard, any of these things with the governor's change, you're gonna have a lot of, especially with a Democrat to a Republican or vice versa. But I think before we write a letter or contact, let's sit down with Brian and Phil Miskovic and say, what is it that you need us to do? And maybe they need some more information, but
Yeah, I think we need, from our side, we need to find out what the DGS state is planning.
Mhm.
Nobody knows yet, so.
maybe let them
Except
find
that
out.
they are now talking on what have been with Prince Edward, so.
I would have a feeling that basically, because the pipeline comes from the other side, I'm gonna be shocked if they're gonna dedicate that portion back to the town of Crew. I don't know.
So in that plan, is Prince Edward just gonna sell the water direct to the prison and you guys will be completely cut out of it?
We don't know.
You don't know, okay.
But I can tell you, that was the original plan.
That they were gonna cut everybody out?
And when we met with Mickey Jones and everybody from Behavioral Health, I think they had a big dust up with Phil Miskovic's predecessor. And they come to us and said, we're bypassing Crew. We're gonna go around Crew, and we're gonna run this water line right down the overhead transmission lines from Blackstone to Crew. That was the original plan, and they were gonna bypass Crew. After thinking about it and talking about it, I said, you got 600,000 gallons, we can do it. But wisely, I think the town of Crew interjected and say, hey, this is devastating.
I agree.
Yeah, instead it's like us giving up our
I mean,
electric system.
it's the same thing, I don't think that Nottaway should roll over and let Prince Edward just come waltzing into our county either.
I think we should talk to everybody. I don't know Burkeville. I've never had a formal or even an informal communication with the town of Burkeville. I've seen chatter on Facebook and things like that that really probably doesn't have any merit, but other than that, there's nothing formal from the mayor or the town
I
council.
ain't never seen no neither.
That's where we're at. Heads up. And, again, a missed opportunity, but I think it's a big deal a much bigger deal for Crew, certainly in the short term. Dad, anything? You okay? Good with everything that's been said? Nothing freaked you out? Okay. In the interim, we are, as you know, working on a parallel track with Fort Pickett on their rates. We signed an MOU, okay, and that memorandum of understanding says that the town of Blackstone would receive 400,000 gallons of water and 400,000 gallons of sewer capacity at the treatment works. Because the Guard currently reserves 1.5 million gallons at each plant, okay? That's 75% of what we've got at the wastewater plant. So they were willing to give up 400,000 gallons at the wastewater and 400,000 gallons at the water plant. In exchange, the town had made some, can't say it's commitment because it's not a formal document, but had an understanding that the town would do a couple things. One of them was we would change their billing structure. So instead of them getting a 4 million gallon water bill and a 12 million gallon sewer bill, because I&I, they're gonna be billed 4 and 4. Okay? Now that puts more responsibility on the town, and so in order to do that, and we were gonna waive all their tap fees on post perpetually. I don't know if they'd ever paid one, but I think they may have paid one for the NBC building or something, or the mock building that they put in there.
Yeah, they did pay one for the, what was that?
It's a waiver of the tap fees and changing the billing structure. We met with Michael Alder. His indication to us was the adjutant general was good with a 30% increase in the rates. Okay? And I told him the only thing that we need to cover is in our negotiations, we needed $200,000 a year in additional revenues from the higher rate, albeit on par with the water consumption, so that we can start replacing some of this old stuff. And in that MOU, it says any funds received will go into a special fund to replace sewer pipes.
Cause we take on the I&I with the new billing
We
structure.
take on the I&I, but that gives us maybe a half. You know, the state the Guard puts up 200,000, we put up 200,000, and next thing you know, maybe 400,000. Or we sit back and say, we can service $400,000 a debt a year, and we borrow enough money to really take a bite out of the thing. So, we met with Michael Alder. Jennifer can give you a little better explanation. I think she's got, either a meeting scheduled with Michael or she's met with him, to see if we can get this thing finalized, but I think we're really close. The rates that, Michael had proposed to us, I think you may have been here, was $9.50 a thousand gallons, is that right?
It was 9 for water and $9.50 for wastewater.
Okay, and we came back at 10.
So we're closed. He said, I think he's on leave, till the holidays, so it won't be till January that we start.
But I think, as far as I can see, the negotiations with Pickett are gonna work out. Now, the only oddball in this thing is that the post commander or the adjutant general leave, and we get new guys coming in.
He's not.
Yeah, adjutant's gonna stay? Good. He's great. Tim Williams on record is as easy as any of them that I've dealt with as far as the adjutant general has been great. I don't know Tim Pillion as well, but he's probably the second
And it
best
wouldn't matter
commander.
if he left, yeah, oh yeah.
Second best post commander that's ever been.
Yeah, it wouldn't matter if he left, because Tim's still gonna be.
Well, hopefully, there's not a big monkey wrench thrown into the whole discussion, okay? So January, maybe we can wrap that thing up and move on, start charging the new rates and get these tap fees out of the way, and, because they do have some building going on out the airfield, the fire station, and several others that, are ready to go. Okay.
Well, we pay for the tap fees for that, right?
Huh?
We automatically would eat them anyway, right?
Man, the tap fees for that fire station, because they got like a 2-inch out-of-town meter, that tap fee's like $24,000. And we put it on hold until we can get this resolved. But if we can't get it resolved, then we're gonna go back to them and say, you know, it's $24,000. But I would rather work this out. This is a whole lot better than, we may win a battle with 24,000, but we're gonna lose the war long term. So, I think we're within 30, 60 days of wrapping it up. Agree?
I believe so.
Okay. Looking at things with ARPA funds. Okay. So you know on the water stuff, it's my intention to try to finish, we agreed to buy the software to install those automatic read, water meters, okay? So we're using ARPA money for that, and we're gonna get away from the touch read, so we don't have to walk to every single one. You can do it in a car.
Yeah, I'm gonna propose that to our
Yeah,
council too.
I think it can be helpful, and if you wanna
Yeah.
piggyback on what we're doing,
Okay,
we'll
yeah.
take a look at it. If you look at the budget with ARPA, it's $3.5 million, and I'm using rough, okay? The total for the armory, which comes out of that, is about $2,250,000, okay? So that should leave you, what is that,
1.3.
$1.2 million or thereabouts, okay? We're doing some stuff where we gave some utility relief out of ARPA, if you remember so far. What I'd like to do, and what I'm gonna propose to the full council at some point, is to continue on with this meter replacement. We just keep on trying to get these meters replaced. However, well, you're not. We got two things going on in parallel track. One of them is in Taylor Bottom, okay? We've got an old trunk line. I'm gonna tell you it was built in the 40s, but it may have been before that. It's very old. It runs from about Southside Transmission all the way to Rocky Bump Pump Station, which is down there below the fire training ground, right down that creek bottom, okay? Bad shape, it's old. We've been talking with Sheila and some of the folks at her district about doing a housing improvement project in Taylor Bottom. And maybe that can be our match, you know, to get some of that. So we're in the process of working on that, and Randy Jones is working on a PER in case we decide USDA funds are the best place to go, because they do require a more formal PER, okay? The reason that line is a problem, because there's gaps in it, and there's a lot of sand and grit that's getting in, and it's really wearing out our force main and pump station. And the pump station is only about 5 to 6 years old, and we're already having to replace some of these pellets and the moving parts inside, because there's so much sand in there, and so much debris going through sticks and things, and we gotta work on that. Second item is the force main that comes out of Forest Drive Pump Station. We just paid it off last year. It was replaced when I was here as a dark-haired youth in my 20s, okay? We just paid it off last year, and we've already had some faults in it where the pipe itself has worn thin. Andre can explain more to you. I said, Andre, how can this be? It's only 20-some years old. How can we're having problems with it? And we sat down with Mac Bug, and he said, I think the application that was selected back in the 90s for a force main was probably not the right one. It's a ductile iron pipe. And there's so much stuff in sewage that you just think about it constantly flowing back and forth. The abrasion has caused a problem, according to Mac Bug. And it makes sense to me. The hydrology would make more sense to use a PVC, a slick walled and all that sort of thing. So, I asked Randy to give me a cost estimate for that project. about $2.7 million. And
How many,
2 years
how much
ago, it was
pipe
about
are we
$1.5 million.
how,
If you wanna see what inflation does,
how long is that line?
shoot, it runs from Pickett Court all the way to 10th Street at the
Street on
post
Pickett.
command, or whatever used to be a building
Probably.
316 or whatever.
2.5, 3 miles.
So they,
You know, the headquarters building, right? About 3 miles.
so, working on it, I don't have the money for it. I have no immediate idea how to get that done. I do have an appointment with the Department of Health on the water side, and we're gonna try to pursue Mike Crocker with DEQ and find out, cause they do the sewer, what's out there with sewer with infrastructure, cause I just don't know. Man, you can replace a whole, half, 3/4 of the system, and then when you finish, start over again, yeah. So, that's where we're at, we got a bunch of stuff to replace, we got 1940 water line, and we're gonna address that. There's a significant amount of the water system at Pickett. If you didn't know, it's still transite pipe, it's all asbestos pipe. The water line is going through asbestos, so there's still plenty of work to do and stuff to look at. But I think getting this MOU with the post wrapped up is gonna start building enough of a fund, even if we borrow $5 million, we can service it with our 200,000 that we matched the guard, and maybe we can do a sizable project and really take a chunk out of this stuff. So, that's what we do. Alright? Do you have any questions? Jennifer, anything that you need to add? I'm sorry we don't have as much good news to tell you. It sounds pretty gloomy, but, let's leave the line of communication with the town of Crew open, and you have my commitment that we'll at least sit down and talk and listen and see what we can do and make it a better deal if it's possible. Okay? Good? Thank you. Thank you, Jim. That's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Got anything else?
All right, heads up.
During the meeting at 3:31.
Thank you. I appreciate that.